I want people to pay attention when I talk about this because it's quite interesting, at least to me anyway, when I bring it up and talk about things that you should pay attention to. God will show you in different ways. I was on the transit today and I went to go run some errands because I have appointments in the next couple of days and knew I wasn't going to have time to go to the store during the course of me going to these appointments. Well, while I was on the bus, I ran into a lady that I really enjoy talking to her, and she's a really sweet elderly lady. I love talking to the elderly people because they'll give you insight on stuff that you just don't realize is really important until you sit down until they show you there's some different types of thought process that help to reveal things that go on in your life. Well, all of a sudden, this lady just pops off with, well, I prayed I see these people and I prayed for my husband and I see all these other women praying for husbands and they're just not ready for him yet. She said, I don't understand. Why would people want to push being with people when they're not mature enough to be in that type of a relationship yet? And she told me, she said, I'm going to tell you something. God's putting it in me to tell you. And when somebody says that to you, you better pay attention. She said, God's putting it in me to tell you that I didn't find my husband until I was 50. And see, she's not the only person that said this to me. I've had other people tell me, that they didn't find their true love and their true spouses until they were older in life. And they also didn't find their calling until then either. Well, I keep hearing this over and over again. It's coming out of more than one person's mouth. Well, when she told me that God put it in her to tell me that, and that it was important to instill that sometimes people just aren't ready, and that's not even about you. Sometimes that's about them not being ready, and sometimes it is about you not being ready. And so you have to pay attention when people tell you that. This lady's very smart, and she can hone in on stuff that really really is relevant knowing my religious background. And so when I sit here and talk to her on the transit, and she just pops off with that, and she told me, again, I'm going to say this, that she said that God put it in her to tell me that she was not mature enough until she was 50 in being with her anointed husband. And so I want people to realize that when somebody tells you that, pay attention to them because that's usually God talking to you through other people. And she told me, she was like, well, before then, she was just too wild. She ran the streets and she drank and she did all this and that. And I said, well, I don't drink or do any of that other stuff. I'm not into drugs or any of that. I'm allergic to codeine and opioids medically, so I can't mess with none of that stuff anyway, and I'm just not a drinker. I never have been. And so I haven't had a drink in years and years and years. And so when we're sitting here talking like that and she's telling me, I'm thinking, all this stuff that I've overcome, especially in the last couple of years, that's really, really cool, and I'm really proud of myself for it. Well, when she popped off with that, again, this is not the first time that I've heard people talk like that. So when somebody says that to you, pay attention to them. Because she told me, she was like, well, she just wasn't mature enough yet. And so I'm sitting there listening to her and thinking, in relevance and reference to myself as to how that came across to me. And she was absolutely right. And I told her, I said, the man that I married when I was 17, James O'Keefe, when I married him, and I told her, I said, we haven't been together since I married him. And that I told her, I said, when I met him and we got married, I wasn't mature enough then. I said, but I'm a whole different person now. I self-control. I didn't have any of that back then. On top of self-control, I used to have a temper, and I really don't have that anymore either. Now I just let stuff roll off of me. I'm not the same person I was when I was 17, and I wasn't mature enough then. And I told him that too. Let him know when I was, and he said it too. He agreed with me that I wasn't mature enough. And so I look at myself now, and I look at all the growing and all of the experience that I've been through. And she said that was a lot of it too, is that you just have life experiences that you didn't have when you were younger. And so people hop around and they do stuff they're not supposed to and this and that. I told her, I said, I don't have that as an issue. I haven't been with anybody since 2009 except for my daughter's father, and that was a forced thing. That wasn't something that I willingly wanted to do. And in the end, I made it very clear. And even he said that he pushed himself on me. So here we sat with all of that situation. So, I admit I don't have a problem admitting that when I've been with people or any of that, but I haven't been with anybody like that, not willingly, since 2009. And so I'm sitting here looking at and listening to her with her conversation, and it's really on point with where I'm at in mentally now compared to it's made me reflect as to where I used to be when I married this man. I'm not the same person I was. And I don't have the temper that I had. I've got way more self-control. And I also try to use this in reference to other people, and I tell people all the time, it's better to be by yourself than to be with the wrong person. And even she said that. She said her biggest issue was the cheating, and I said the same thing. I said, I don't cheat. I'm not somebody who goes out and runs the streets and does bad behavior. I just want somebody that's going to be there and be honest and not put my body at risk by sleeping around with other people, because my health is important. And when you have somebody that you love like that, I wouldn't sleep with anybody anyway without putting a ring on it. So according to the word, I'm allowed to remarry. It just has to be somebody that's of Christian descent. They have to be religious. They have to be a believer. And so for me to sit here and to give reference to that type of situation, you got to put a ring on it before I even take that risk. And even in that, people still cheat. And so you have to be very, very careful of who you let in that way, because you could still pick the wrong person and they could still betray you, which is what I'm terrified. I'm absolutely terrified to get with anybody anymore, because I'm scared to death that the next person that I get with, because I've shielded myself to the point where I'm afraid to get with anybody because I'm scared to death to be hurt again. I'm tired of people that cheat and lie, people that steal, and all of this. And so I really, really tried my best to stay away from anybody because is in that type of a format. I'm really funny about keeping friends too, just because I've been hurt so much and I've been used and taken advantage of. And so it makes me so shy about even being around anybody and trying to let anybody in. It's really hard for me to do that. I'm getting a little bit better at it, but I'm still to a point now where I'm just relationship shy. And so for her to say that, it really, really hit home for me. It's almost like, what's next? Because here I am, I'm close to 50. And so I'm sitting here looking at this going, is God talking to me through these people? Because I heard it more than once over the last couple days. And then over the last couple of years, I keep hearing it repeatedly over and over and over again. So we'll see where things go and transpire from here, because again, when I married James, I was not ready for marriage at all. And even I said that. He did too. So we'll see where this leads and what happens, because I definitely pray for my marriage. I pray for God to send me my husband. But will that happen or not? That's up to God. And in His time, when He feels I'm ready for it, I don't rush it. It's not something I go looking for. I'm not out there club hopping or, beach surfing or doing, running around trying to find a man. I don't roll like that. It takes a lot for me you have to be friends with me before I'll even think of considering any situation like that, just so we're all on the same page. With God's love, something for you to think about when people have conversation with you. Listen to what they say, because God may be using them to talk to you. And if you're not paying attention, especially if it's stuff that you hear over and over again, when you keep hearing the same thing over and over again, like with what this lady said to me today, God's working, and you may not realize it, but He is working, and He's trying to tell you that He's working in your life. So pay attention with God's love. God bless America. Have a blessed day, and back the badge.